You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast, Book of the Month episode. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me, as always, Spencer, the Vermont Vaginal Volumizer Church.
Well, I don't even know what that means.
I just came with that off the top. As I was saying the words, I continued the flow, and that's what came out as vaginal volumizer. You're feeling it.
Is that what I'm doing?
Yes, I don't know if volumizing is a verb, but it's what you're doing. That's icky.
Yeah.
But it does go with the theme of patriarchy, which is the book of the month. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. All right, that's good.
You got it.
We got the vaginal volumizer out.
Yeah.
That's all we needed.
Yep.
Don't have to actually record an episode.
That's enough.
All right. I didn't bring the book down, nor did I have the synopsis at hand. What am I even doing? I'm getting worse as we continue these October episodes. And as of now, it's only September 21, 2024. The year of our Lord.
Baby Jesus?
Dirt God.
Goat.
I worship a dirt God. I can see the dirt.
Yeah,
the dirt is always there. It's always present. Shirley Jackson, why
we're
did you...
surrounded by it now.
Yeah, why do we have to have such a long title? Taking readers deep into a labyrinth of dark neurosis, we have... Or is it neuroses? I hear people say neuroses. I always say neurosis.
Is it? I always kind of thought it depended on how you were using it.
I think neuroses is probably the clinical term.
Yeah.
Taking readers deep into a labyrinth of dark neuroses, We Have Always Lived in the Castle is a deliciously unsettling novel about a perverse, isolated, and possibly murderous family and the struggle that ensues when a cousin arrives at their estate. And we read the edition that features a new introduction by Jonathan Lethem, or Letham. Not a synopsis. Goodreads has failed me.
What? No way.
And we're also going to be discussing the movie version that came out in, I don't know, 2020, 2019, somewhere around there. I watched that. You did not.
I didn't.
But a lot of people say the movie is fantastic. I have slightly different opinions, but I did like the movie. But we'll save that till the second half of the episode. How about that?
Sounds like a plan.
Alrighty, Spencer Church. He is volumizing for gaganals. Show me your bobs and vagine.
Do we want to save the introduction for the actual part of the episode? Or the synopsis? This is still the cold open, right?
No, we're not doing a cold open.
Oh.
What the fuck do I always got to do a cold open for, Spencer?
I don't know. You got mad when we didn't do one the last time, so...
I don't want to.
I just want to make sure we skipped the cold open and had it recorded at the end again.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I edited that episode yet either. Jesus Louises, why is there not a synopsis online for this book? It's a very short book. It's like 150 pages.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to go off the Wikipedia, which might be terrible. We Have Always Lived in the Castle is a 1962 mystery novel by American author Shirley Jackson.
So far, so good.
Now, this is just a personal preference. Shirley Action Jackson.
Right.
What I would call her.
Yeah.
Due to one of our frequent listener, Mike's recommendations, I watched that Shirley movie starring Elizabeth Grossface Moss.
Yeah.
It's not that she has a gross face. We've talked about this, just zooming in on the face. It was a very good movie, though, and it covers kind of, in a fictitious way, Shirley Jackson's life when she was writing Hangs a Man, and it's pretty cool. She was like a witchy lady, which bleeds over into this book heavily. This was Jackson's final work and was published with a dedication to Pascal Covici, the publisher, 3 years before the author's death in 1965. The novel was written in the voice of 18-year-old Mary Catherine Mary Cat Blackwood, who lives with her agoraphobic sister and alien uncle on an estate. 6 years before the events of the novel, the Blackwood family experienced a tragedy that left 3 survivors isolated from their small village. All right, let's get into this. So the first thing I like about this book is that it is broken up into 3 sections, kind of like a play.
Yeah.
So you don't just have beginning, middle, and end. You have it spaced out every 50 pages. So it's even throughout because it's only a 150-page book. So the beginning is the introduction of the characters, especially Mary Cat, which is an 18-year-old, I'm going to say it, autistic girl. She comes across as very autistic. Some people have described her as robotic or unfeeling. I see her as more as an autistic character with severe OCD. We'll get into that. The second part of the book deals with their cousin who comes to visit, cousin Charles, who is kind of a money-hungry fuckface.
Yeah, I didn't like Charles at all.
No, and we're going to spoil this book. It's, what is it, fucking 60 years old or something?
Yeah.
I'm not good at maths. 70 years old, maybe.
Numbers are hard.
Yeah, 60-something, 68, I don't know. But the third part of the book deals with the climax and the ensuing, not problem, but the outcome of said climax. What happens after?
Yeah.
Why the fucking levels keep dropping? Dude, we might have to beat this mixer to death. I fucking hate it. Now I'm super loud.
I'll be okay with that.
So the introduction of this book is literally from the mind of Mary Cat, who, again, I said is quite autistic, and I will stick with that throughout the description of this. Did you feel she was autistic?
That didn't come in mind whenever you were saying it. I was just thinking more just like a psychopath kind of like just doesn't have like the feelings for others.
At the beginning of this, when we're introduced to Mary Cat, and she has to go to the village, the local town. Now her family is filthy stinking rich.
You're right.
They live in a big mansion, fucking endless farmland, and they have the shortcuts blocked off. So there's paths that go through their land that the villagers could use to get to the highway easily, and these rich fuckfaces blocked it off. So there's the classism already coming out. But since this is from the view of Mary Cat, who is the youngest of the family, you get this view that they're the victims, and the villagers who hate their guts and detest them and avoid them or mock them or anything, the nature, just mean-spirited people. They're the villains. But if you looked at it from their point of view, maybe not so much. That goes into the classism and whatnot. But she goes every 2 days to this village to get food and library books. And on her excursions, she's very Wednesday Addams with her thoughts about just murdering everyone. She wants to poison everyone or kill everyone or see them die in horrific ways.
Yeah.
It's described over and over, and Shirley Jackson does such an amazing job of making it seem almost funny.
Yeah, and also too, because at this point you don't know what happened. I mean, like, okay, yeah, they broke off, they blocked off a part of a road, but like, is that because like the village people were like saying things and like mocking, like, you know what I mean, harassing her, and it's just like, just because like her family before she was born, blocked off a road, like that's a little harsh, like.
Well, the family with their endless resources, you would think would be a testament to the town's thriving economy if they have one, because who's going to be spending a lot of money in the close by village? The rich family.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's if that was necessarily their fault that the village hates them, at least at the beginning. But then when a story unravels, it actually gets worse, in my opinion. So the first 2 chapters are like strict gothic, which I really like such a creepy atmosphere. When I first started reading this, I thought they can be like zombie people.
Right.
I almost got a I Am Legend feel where it's like, is it just like a bunch of fucking, are they like, you think maybe the family, like they're vampires or something, or there's some kind of evil Dracula-esque family.
I kind of got like an Addams Family
kind
of vibe from it, which is funny what you saying the Wednesday thing. But yeah, it was kind of like serious version of that almost I was kind of getting.
Yeah.
Of just like this weird, like, morose family, but like you can tell they love each other, but like no one else, and it's just like the weird setup of it all. Yeah,
and the family, as strange as they are, it doesn't seem like they warrant such hate at the beginning. Like, you really don't understand it, and it really comes to a head when Mary Cat goes into a local cafe to get a cup of coffee, and she mainly just does it because she wants to be not even social. I guess she just feels she has to make some kind of appearance to seem normal. I'm not quite sure. But the proprietor of the coffee shop is like one of the only nice people to her. What unfolds is a very tense scene when 2 men walk into the coffee shop and they make the girl very uncomfortable. Extremely uncomfortable. And the whole time I read that scene, I was just like, God damn, what's going to happen? Like, this is fucked up. Like, you get the feeling like they're going to do something super bad to her.
And you're like, yes, I would also like to see them burn in the street that's a fire like now. Like, I would like to see that because these guys are assholes.
Yeah, I want to see him get murdered. So there's that scene that unfolds, and ultimately nothing actually bad happens.
Yeah.
But some backstory is dropped a little bit. Like, you get more of a personal touch as to why the characters feel the way they do about the family, but still not justified at all.
No, I think isn't that like when we first start to get like hints of like how most of the family died?
Yeah, you get some hints, and when Mary Cat's on her way home, you find out even the youth hates the family, and there's some kids who run up to her, sing-songing some awful rhyme they have about her, which goes on throughout the book. And I think it's about her like poisoning people and shit like that. So you're already like, ugh. And it's strange because the way this is written, and since it's from her perspective, even though she's thinking about killing all these people, it seems justified because the way they're treating her, even though it might just all be in her head too.
Yeah.
Like, other than those two guys, like a lot of the people, you know, they kind of avoid her and stuff, but that could just be in her head.
Yeah.
Like when she goes to the grocery store, she plays this whole scenario in her head, how they personally attend to her to wrap up their stuff and get her out of there as quick as possible, and other people aren't looking at her or they're avoiding her. It's like that could just be in her head. Like, again, the neuroses. You don't know if that's actually, it's unreliable at best.
Yeah.
Because it's her view and she's clearly not well. And as the story unfolds, she's very unwell. But when she returns home, that's when we meet her sister Constance, who is almost a Stepford wife. Like, she is very happy, but like mentally disturbed.
She's the one like I felt sorry for the most.
Yeah.
Out of the whole, story.
Yeah. And what Shirley Jackson does here is she introduces the character of Julian, Uncle Julian, who is an older, it's their father's brother.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that survived the family tragedy, which as of yet I don't think is explained. But then what Shirley Jackson did that was so brilliant is she uses him through his dialogue, and he has like a dementia thing going on.
Yeah, well, like, because he survived, but he's still messed up. Like, he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
He can't remember things right. That's
And
why he's writing a book.
Yeah, he's writing his memoirs in a book, and he's just constantly reliving the past, and mainly what ultimately is the poisoning of the family at a family dinner. So
again, that's also very unreliable because of who it's coming from.
Yeah. So Uncle Julian relays the fact that the family was poisoned, and there's so much detail that goes into his thoughts, and then Mary Cat's, which goes into the OCD, her obsessive thoughts. Like when she gets uncomfortable, especially in the second half when we get the cousin Charles that comes visit and she's very threatened by him, she'll just start naming poisonous like fungi and fruits and vegetables and plants. It's just like, but very scientifically detailed. And it's like, that's where I got like the autism super OCD stuff. But Uncle Julian is used as the device to relay the backstory in a way that isn't exposition. So he's just like, what was that thing we had? And then he'll go into how the family was poisoned. Somebody put arsenic in the sugar bowl. And when they had dessert, they all had blackberries. He didn't have as much as the others, so he didn't die, but he got really fucked up. Constance doesn't eat.
She doesn't like sugar.
Yeah, she doesn't eat the sugar, so she didn't get sick. And then Mary Cat was in trouble, so she was upstairs when the dinner happened. She wasn't at dinner, so she didn't get poisoned. It turns out that Constance was the one who got blamed because she cooked the dinner.
Yeah.
So she went on trial, and this is where the hatred for the family actually stems, supposedly. At least according to, like I said, the taunts from the kids, with the men, how they chastise Mary Cat and mainly her family. But what it seems to be, to me, is like this sensationalism of celebrity almost, like before that was even a thing, really.
Right.
I mean, it was always a thing, but like before it is now, like the Kardashians and shit. So you have these people who feel that this family has a wealth and opulence they don't deserve. They're living above everyone else and almost flaunting it, won't let them use their land, just even as a simple path to go through. They feel almost ostracized by this rich family. So when this, not just a tragedy, but this scandal breaks out, they pile on the girl. And they take all their anger towards the family onto the undeserving Constance, who up to this point, you don't know if actually did anything.
Right.
She was just the one that got blamed for it. And ultimately, she gets off. She doesn't go to jail or anything. And then that's what sends like the whole thing over the top where, oh, we hate this family. They're rich. They could get away with anything. That's how I took it.
You're right.
And then before Cousin Charles comes to visit, Mary Cat, we get a real feel for the character. Like I said, the opening 2 chapters are really good. So much suspense, and it's very thrilling even though nothing actually happens. The whole book, almost nothing happens except for the climax. But when we get to look into Mary Cat when she's not around the village anymore and she's not as nervous, I would guess, maybe threatened, but when she's with her sister, this is where it gets very weird. So Mary Cat, when you read it, if you didn't have the opening saying she's 18, you'd think she was a little child.
Yeah, well, that's because like whenever I was talking to you, like when I was first couple chapters, I'm like, how old do you think Mary Cat is? Because like I had a thing like maybe not like 6, but like 9 or like, you know what I mean? Something like, you know, that middle age, like, you know, because I was having a hard time at first trying to, you know, figure out her age.
It says in the first sentence she's 18.
Yeah.
You read the first sentence, which we've had this discussion.
Right.
And you never went back and reread that first sentence.
No.
That you glossed over.
Yeah, apparently.
So she's 18, but like you said, it does read like she's a very, like 7 to 12.
Yeah.
She's a child, but that's just like mentally. And then it gets weird because Constance is 10 years older than her, so she's 28. But the way Mary Cat views Constance and the way they have interactions, Mary Cat seems to be the older one in their relationship, which is odd because she feels like she has to take care of Constance constantly. She has to make sure Constance is happy, safe, won't let her go outside. It's almost like she's a motherly figure to Constance.
Yeah.
Which is strange because Constance is older and should be the one in that role. And Constance is very innocent, but you don't know if that's a facade or if that's from trauma. Because Mary Cat will say these outlandish, awful things and like, oh, I'm gonna poison everyone.
And she's like, oh, Mary Cat.
That's silly, Mary Cat. Or you're so silly. Like,
yeah.
She always says stuff like that. And then Mary Cat is very obsessed with them going to the moon. Like, one day we'll live on the moon. And she wants her and her sister to live in isolation. No one else around. Not even Uncle Julian.
Well, because around this time, too, we also find out that across their land, Mary Cat, like, puts up these, like, borders and spells and stuff, with like which is go back to, like, the witchcraft stuff we were talking about earlier.
Well, that's what I was going to get into next was her OCD with burying things. And she's obsessed with these weird trinkets and nailing books to trees and all this stuff. So she gets into like this witchcraft stuff, but she's super superstitious, very superstitious. And it goes into like this just beyond simple superstition of, oh, this is going to be like, you know, I'll put hexes on people or I'm going to create barriers to help keep us safe. It goes into like a realm that's destructive. Like she'll start breaking mirrors and she has these outbursts where she just does fucking random shit. And it's one of those things where I've read that people who have like severe OCD really can relate to the character because it's written so well of like just this obsessive nature. She has to go through almost these routines or these things she has to do. She has to come up with these words that no one will use to keep them safe. It goes on and on with this stuff. And again, it goes into her mind because it's written from her viewpoint. So it's very strange. And that goes into the moon stuff where like she just wants it to be her and her sister. And she's almost very controlling in that manner. And the two sisters, this is where the story divulges into some like maybe patriarchy stuff or classism stuff. They're so super rich. The whole family's wealth and their inheritance and everything is locked in a safe, which they have access to.
Yeah.
And they have no concern about money. Like they don't care about it.
It's like one of those like, how much does a gallon of milk cost? Like it doesn't matter because they don't know.
Like when Cousin Charles comes later, he finds buried in the yard a box full of fucking silver coins.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you burying money? What the fuck? Like Mary Cat just takes super valuable things and just buries them, and Constance doesn't care at all. Neither sister gives a hoot about wealth or money or anything. They don't care about any of it. They don't use it. They can do whatever they want. They don't care. So that automatically just makes them strange people. And Uncle Julian doesn't care either because he's too far gone.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
There's a big obsession in this novel about food. And Constance is, I want to say this has got to be a reflection of the 50s and like the role of like the housewife and stuff. I can't really extrapolate too much on that because I'm not too sure. But like Constance's whole thing is the kitchen. She's obsessed with the kitchen. She's obsessed with gardening and cooking. There's this whole thing about the cellar. They have canned goods that the women of the family have made for centuries or like generation. I think 7 generations, however long that is. And even Constance tells Mary Cat at one point, like some of the stuff down there, like, oh, we can't eat that, we'll die. And that's like a look into the past. Like, you can't forget about the past, but if you dive too hard into it, you'll die. And that goes back into, Uncle Julian and his obsession. But Mary Cat, like, she's the one who could, like, travel the property and stuff. And Constance, who's been just locked in the house for 60 years, every once in a while will go out, like, in the yard or something beyond the garden. And she's like, look, Mary Cat, look how far I've gone now. Maybe one day I'll go to the village with you. And Mary Cat, like, recoils at this. Like, she can't. She's very, like I said, very controlling of her sister. And that's where you get the reverse roles of, oh, I'm the younger sister, but I'm controlling you because you're too dainty, too delicate. You'll get injured by the world. You can't go out there. Which we find out later is Mary Cat's own fucking doing.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. There's also an interesting scene where we find out they do get visitors. They get
have
this,
like one friend, one lady for tea.
a busybody lady who goes there for tea. And I can't really tell if she's genuinely nice or if she just wants gossip.
Yeah.
You get it that she's kind of a gossip, but she is their connection to the outside world beyond Mary Cat's trips to the village.
And I think her husband's the sheriff, right?
Yeah. She visits like once or twice a month or something. Everything's like played out too. On Mondays, I go here.
Yeah.
Tuesdays, I do this. And again, that's super OCD routine. We have to do this. Like, this is Mary Cat's routine.
Yeah.
She has all these things that she has to do. And Constance will go along with it because she's an enabler. Throughout the whole book, she just enables Mary Cat's, weird things that she wants to do. She allows her to do them. And then she also entertains her weird notions of living on the moon and, oh, that's silly Mary Cat.
Well,
she doesn't ever just say, hey, that's not right.
Well, I think when we get to the end, I think I have a thing about like that kind of stuff.
But going back to the lady who visits, on one particular visit, she brings with her a friend. And the friend's just really obsessed with the murder, the family murder, like the poisoning. And they go and visit, and she's very nervous. And what I love, too, is it always adds a little level of suspense whenever there's like visitors or anyone there. Like they're very polite still because they're still high society people, even though the family's dead.
Well, that like the politeness and like that plays a big part, just like in like how you said how they prep the food and all this, like it's very cordial and like that kind of way.
Yeah, so it throws off the guests because I don't know what they're expecting, but they go and then like, oh, these are just like normal rich people or whatever. But then they're like the one lady who never visits, like their first time visiting, she doesn't want to drink the tea, like cause she thinks she's gonna get because it's sugar in it.
Yeah.
So there's things like that go on through, and then you also get like whenever anything goes out of Mary Cat's control. I forget if it was a topic or something that came up, but Mary Cat had to go into the kitchen, find the exact precise, like it was like a cup or something that she felt had some significance and had to break it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? But she does that throughout the whole book where it's like, oh, this mirror needs broken for this exact reason. Has to be this mirror and this hammer, just stuff like that. But then Uncle Julian comes in and he's very debonair when he's normal.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when he's thinking right. He comes in and he's like, oh, hello, madam. And then he ends up telling the whole murder to the family friend or the new person that comes there, and he takes her in the other room. Meanwhile, I wish I remembered the lady's name. She's like freaking out. No, we don't need to talk about that. This is distasteful. But then the friend just keeps going with it, and Uncle Julian takes her to the kitchen. This is where it happened. This is where my brother John died. It's just like, what the fuck? It's just so demented. But then because it's offset by the politeness and their demeanor, it's just like almost going to a museum and having the curator tell you about what happened in a very animated way.
Yeah.
But this, like, to them, that really happened. There was really a murder. Going into the second part of the book, so let's say Act 2, they get a unwanted visit by Cousin Charles, who is a fuckface.
Yeah, fuck Charles.
Charles is a normal guy, and at first you're like, all right, he... Again, with offsetting things, he offsets their fucking neuroses by being a normal person, which it's what the ladies did too. But he is a relation, so they have to keep him there, or at least they feel like they can't just exclude him. They have to have him there. And then, as his part slowly unravels, you get that he's very greedy. He just wants the money. He don't care about these girls' well-being. But then it does get icky because he falls for Constance, kind of.
Did you ever, at a moment, like think of like, you think this guy's actually their cousin? Or is this just a guy, like, just some one, swindler guy?
Yeah, when he's first introduced, you're kind of led to believe that he could be a grifter or something.
Yeah.
You're like, is this really a cousin? We never heard from him before. they didn't see him since he was a kid or something.
Mhm.
I think he even says. But then Shirley Jackson made it a point that Uncle Julian was like, "You look just like my brother
Yeah.
John." And then it's like, okay,
But also, like, what's he remember his brother John look like?
oh, they got paintings.
Well, yeah, I guess.
It's his brother John. He keeps
Right.
fucking going into arguments with him in conversation.
Yeah.
Where he does that with Charles a lot, where they're talking about something. Usually when something
Money way.
yeah, something he doesn't want to talk. Julian doesn't want to talk about. He just reverts back to the argument he had with John because they had a falling out or something, and then he's seeing Charles as his brother, and he keeps slipping in and out of that. But Mary Cat immediately hates the guy.
Yeah.
She also has a cat. I can't remember the name of the cat, but
Oh yeah.
I really should have fucking remembered that. But the cat has a big part of this too, where it's a very nice cat, follows her around everywhere, and it's not so much in the movie version. It's only makes appearances, but it's like a big part of the book. In the second act, Charles slowly gets into Constance's head, which is actually it should be a good thing. Because he ends up convincing her that, hey, we can go away and go, you can visit the world. You're young still. You don't need to be locked in here like a fucking animal.
Yeah.
You're not guilty. You were proven not guilty. You don't have to even live here if you don't want to, I mean, granted, it's coming from a place he just wants the money.
Yeah.
So it's not coming from a good place necessarily. But, and again, though, this is told from Mary Cat's perspective. So we don't know
True.
if he's actually a piece of shit or if he just went in there and was like, these people are fucked up. I need to help them.
Yeah.
And obviously, he still does want the money, but that's when it separates. Because there is something to be said in the book about, like, the females in the book. What is that? Apologies for the interruption. While we were recording, I don't know if it'll pick up on here, but we heard this weird metallic tinging, and it sent off a panic because it sounded like the fucking ceiling was collapsing.
Yeah.
Turned out it just started hailing real hard. So I guess October's here.
Right.
I don't know. So anyway, what I was saying was there's something to be said for like the separation of the female characters in not necessarily shunning, but have no interest in material value.
Yeah.
Like any kind of money or any like gold watches, anything like that, they don't give a shit about, but all the male characters are like obsessed. I don't know if this was Shirley Jackson's way of discussing greedy men or just the inherent nature of men wanting power and goods where women are just nurturing. And I didn't look into that stuff too hard, but even Uncle Julian has moments where he's like, that's my brother's watch. Or, he also is kind of obsessed with materialism to a degree that he can be.
Well, his is more of just kind of like almost like a legacy or it's not the material
about carrying on. Well, that's his whole thing is about carrying on his legacy through his memoirs and everything. Whereas the women don't care about any of that stuff. Though the visitors, they're like obsessed with the staircase, which is like made of Italian wood and is like the centerpiece of the house. And like, oh, you got such nice glassware, or whatever it is. Like they're all obsessed with that kind of stuff too. But then all the people that are kind of obsessed with that are viewed as like the bad people or the outsiders. So Cousin Charles, when he comes in, he is immediately an outsider. And Mary Cat treats him very poorly from the get-go. She doesn't talk to him, and when she does, it's just talking about poisonous plants and weird murder. And she
tries to do spells to get him out.
Yeah, and does all this crazy shit. And also, it should be noted that by the midway point, you start thinking she had to be the poisoner, right? Because she is obsessed with all the poison. Yeah. But then you think maybe it's just this trauma thing where once like the poisoning happened, she got obsessed and learned all about it. You're not quite sure yet. I had an inkling, but I actually didn't know how this thing was going to end.
Right. Oh, and that's the thing too, because as you were running out of pages, you're just like, well, like this is good, but like
the fuck's gonna happen?
Yeah, where's it going? What's gonna be the thing? And then the thing happens, and it's like it's a big thing, but it doesn't take that long, and then there's like more after it. It was very surprising.
It has a really interesting pacing with the 3-act structure. The pacing is very even throughout, but you do get this rush to chaos.
And I think that also then helps as you're reading. You're just like, it kind of like amps up the expense without you maybe even realizing it, because like, it's you can tell it's leading to something, but then you're just like, I don't know, what could it be with only this many pages left?
Yeah. Also, the brilliance of Shirley Jackson's ability to view the psyche of these characters and how they change or don't change depending on the character. So obviously Mary Cat is the clear example of neuroses and paranoia, which is a big feature of the book and all this stuff. But Constance is the one who actually evolves. So Cousin Charles gets her to essentially open her mind to the world that she's closed herself off from. And even though she defends her sister, she slowly succumbs to his will, because that seems to be what she does. She succumbs to people's will.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, she was just basically doing whatever Mary Cat was in charge. She shouldn't be, but she was. And then she also doted on, not even necessarily doted on, almost was like a maid to Uncle Julian.
Like a caretaker, yeah.
Yeah, that's how Cousin Charles even like, he needs to be in a home. Like, for the longest time, he needs to be in the home. And she's like, no, but he probably should have been. When we start to get near the end of the second act, Cousin Charles basically has it his way where some bad shit happens to Mary Cat. Not necessarily because Cousin Charles, more so as Mary Cat, her aversion to change. Mm-hmm. So she has like this weird little hideout in the woods. And I think there's like a fight or something that happens, and she runs out there and she stays there because she's just doing fucked up shit. That's what it is. Like, she puts like trees and shit, like wood debris in his bed.
Yeah, and breaking mirrors and stuff.
Yeah, break the mirrors and just doing all these weird hex shit that he just sees as destruction. Though there is another thing to be said about Charles being a fuckface. He starts wearing his uncle's like his Uncle John's clothes and his watch. So he does slowly assume the role. He sleeps in his bed.
Wants to get into the safe.
Yeah, and he just basically is taking over his uncle's life, and you get the feeling
which would be their dad.
Yeah, and basically just wants to take over everything. And we never do in the book version get a view into Uncle or their father John. Like, you get a feeling he was a very powerful man. And that's kind of where it ends. You didn't get too much into even the financial stuff.
And just a little bit about their mom, because they have like a drawing room.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit about her, but not
the maternal stuff kind of comes through with the mom. And even at the end of the book, the drawing room, here's the big spoiler. There's a fire. The drawing room is actually untouched by the fire for the most part. Like, it's the one room that's not damaged too much. And they just go in there once. And then they just never go back, and they just kind of leave it. And that's an interesting thing. You could probably get you could dig into a little bit. But going back into like Mary Cat's little fits and stuff, I'm gonna fast forward to the third act and get into the big climax here. They're going to have a dinner, and it's pretty much set that Constance is probably gonna start going into the world.
Yeah.
Up to this point, Cousin Charles has taken over. He goes to the village and is well liked. He spends time there. He hangs out with people. And it's almost like he's bringing the name back into esteem with the villagers, at least to a degree, because they're like, oh, who are you, big shotter? Because he has a nice car and stuff. And he's like, oh, I'm the cousin Blackwood or whatever. I'm a Blackwood. No, you're Blackwood. Oh, my God. And then it's like, well, fuck you if you don't like it. And then, oh, I respect that because he's the man. He's a man. There's another thing. It's like the villagers. It's easy to disrespect the women because
it's basically two women and an invalid. Like,
well, even so though, when like they do get the random visitor, like they treat Uncle Julian better than the females because he's still a man, even though he's an invalid. He's still a man, and they're just like, oh, he's one of the Blackwood family. Right. But the women they just treat with complete disrespect. So the catalyst for this whole thing is. I think they're at a dinner, and like I said, Charles wants to do all this stuff. He wants the money. He wants to change everything, and he almost has his way. And Mary Cat does something, because she does these horrible things that come across as almost mundane the way she does them, because in her head, it's just like this simple task.
Right.
So she goes into his room where he has like a pipe or something that's still smoldering.
Yeah, because she has this thing, like if she does certain stuff, like putting the branches in his bed and breaking his mirror and stuff like that, will somehow get Charles to leave.
Yeah.
Is her thinking. And then so with this last one, she's like, well, fuck it. I'm going to burn him out. Like,
yeah. So she throws his pipe into the garbage can that's nearby, lights on fire. And as they're at dinner and he's scolding her or whatever he's doing, smoke. Oh, what? And then Charles panics and he turns into a big bitch.
Yeah.
The house lights on fire.
He's literally just going, it's the safe, get the safe.
Yeah, he's trying to. That's all he cares about is the safe. That's when his whole lust for. He doesn't even care about Constance so much as the safe. Like I said, there is like a budding relationship with him and Constance that doesn't go in the movie. It goes into it more to a gross degree.
Yeah.
Because they are like first cousins. But in the book, it's only kind of alluded to that he likes her and maybe she likes her because she does act a little, feminine around him. Oh, yeah. But she still can't get over Mary Cat's ways. Before this, though, what led up to Mary Cat's real outburst was Constance finally gave in to Charles' whims, and she basically has a harsh talking to with Mary Cat about, I shouldn't have let you go on with these delusions so long. And she does blame herself. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you do this. I should have made you go to school or, whatever. Just be a normal girl and have boyfriends. And I should go out and I should have been a regular person and should have put Uncle Julian in a home where he belongs and where he could be safe. So she puts all the blame on herself, but in doing so, she makes it like, oh, there's a big change. Because that's the catalyst for this whole novel is like change. And Mary Cat can't handle change. Constance needs change, but she doesn't know how to handle it either. But that's where Cousin Charles comes in and he actually makes it seem doable.
Right.
But throughout the book, like you get the fighting of change, but then when it happens, it's because Mary Cat makes a huge change by burning down the fucking house, essentially. But here's where it gets crazy. So the big chaotic moment is the house is on fire. The fire department comes. The townspeople comes. Everything's this big whirlwind of activity. And Uncle Julian locks himself in his room with his papers that he's obsessed with.
And like they put out the fire.
Yeah, there's a scene that has a lot of meaning here about all these dirty shoe men rushing in. And one of the man from the cafe, he's one of the bigger characters, the big dickhead, the Mary Cat. I think he's the head of the chief of the fire department or something. So he leads the way, and they do put out the fire, but in doing so, they make everything filthy. They enter without the girls wanting them to, so I don't know if that's an allusion to sexual assault or anything, but they pound their way into the house. They destroy everything. They leave everything wet in their determination to fix, because that's like in the man state of mind, which is an interesting take. Men are logical and want to fix things. So if there's a problem, it doesn't matter about the other stuff or the nuances. It's just, let's fix the problem.
Or the outcome of fixing the problem.
Yeah, it's just about, hey, let's fix the problem. So these men just come in foolhardy and just wreck everything, but they fix the problem. They put the fire out even though the damage is done. And this is where the house turns into a castle too, quote unquote, because now I think Shirley Jackson describes like the upstairs as like a turret where it's just the open, like the roof's gone. It's just open. When it's all said and done, you think, okay, that was the climax, right? No.
Well, but also too, but like not only did they mess it up where they put out the fire, but like after they put out the fire, all the town people were like, well, let's just fuck everything up.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like you think the fire was the climax, but it wasn't, because I forget if it was the firefighter dickhead or someone else. It started with like a rock getting thrown through a window. And then eventually all the townspeople just rush in the house and they start destroying. They get all that pent up anger they've had against these rich people that goes into the classism stuff again.
And kind of like the castle. You're storming the castle.
Yeah, they basically storm the castle and they wreck everything. But the girls are innocent. Like they didn't do anything to any of these people. And the townspeople, they wreck everything. Charles gets the men. They try to take the safe out. That might actually been during the fire. He never gets the safe, by the way.
Yeah.
The safe stays there, and the girls never give a shit about the safe. They kick it, and they're like, yeah, fuck that safe. We don't care about the money. So they actually do have the money. If they wanted to fix their house, they probably could, but they never do. But the girls, they run out of the house, and they get teamed up on by the people they don't beat them up, but they like scare them and rough them up a little. And we'll fast forward. Once everything's said and done, they go through their house in this very meticulous way where they're, sad things like, oh, we only have a couple cups left that aren't broken, and they set them down, a specific spot. And the basement's untouched, which they're happy for. And the garden isn't ruined, but it's covered in ash from the fire. So it's like, it's kind of, we could still live off the food on our land, but it's soiled.
Right.
And then the upstairs destroyed, stairs, the pinnacle of the house, the showcase of the house destroyed. The mother's drawing room's fine. They find like a trinket or something in the yard, like a doll or a statue or something that's surprisingly undamaged. That's when the scene comes in. They take it in there. into the drawing room. They place it down, almost in the honor of their mother's memory. Then they leave. There's a few chairs and stuff they can fix, and you get this just real sense of
also this that Uncle Julian died during the fire.
Yeah, that's a big part. Uncle Julian died during the fire. Didn't say he got burned up or anything.
Yeah, I think it just
heart attack
smoke
or
heart attack, something like that.
And that's what stopped the fighting. Like everyone finally stopped and was like, "There's a dead man in here," and they go and they take Uncle Julian's body out. And again, big whirlwind. The girls end up going into Mary Cat's wood hiding spot. I should have said this before too. There's also a scene. They do have like a cottage or a summer house on the property or something that the whole family detested for some reason, never used. And there was a scene where it's like raining or something, and Mary Cat goes in there and has this crazy fantasy about the dinner, I think it was, where her mother and father kept saying, "Oh, you're a good girl," and like basically saying, you know, we could never yell at you. You could never be in trouble, Mary Cat. So it's right after, I think, the moment with Charles and stuff, where in her mind she's telling herself she could never be the bad one, and she's never could be in trouble. So you get this you get a strong inkling that she can never take accountability for anything, and she always views herself as the victim, even though she's causing a lot of the problems.
Yeah, she's never in the wrong.
Let's just put it, you know, the cards on the table. I think, in my opinion, Mary Cat was the bad guy beginning to end, because the spoiler, if you didn't guess already, she's the one who poisoned the whole family. Mm-hmm. It only comes out during the cleanup when Mary Cat and Constance are in the kitchen, and they have this very brief scene where
I thought it was like when they were getting ready to go to sleep in the cat, like in the little, like her little fort area.
Maybe I forget, but in the movie it was in the kitchen. Maybe you're right, because they were only in the fort area is not even like a fort area in the movie. I'm starting to get them mixed up. I saw the movie more recently than I read the book. But they have a scene where it's only maybe a couple sentences long, I think, where Constance acknowledges Mary Cat killing the family, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And we'll never talk of this again. They say something along those lines, and that's it. But it comes out that Constance was innocent. Mary Cat put it in the sugar because she knows Constance doesn't eat the sugar, and you don't get an explanation why she poisoned the family. The movie you do, which I'm going to get into at the end of this. But
see, the thing that I was talking about, because you know you're talking about how like Constance is very like passive and like lets her get away and all that. I was kind of thinking like, well, maybe she's doing that because like she knows if she tries to give Constance a heart or give Mary Cat, like, you know, tries to have her do something she doesn't want to do, whatever, like, oh, maybe I'll get poisoned.
That's possible.
You know what I mean? Like, it was more of like, and then whenever Charles showed up, she saw that as her opportunity to be like, oh, well, there's another person, maybe now there's two instead of one. Like, you know what I mean? That, you know, that maybe that's why she was kind of going in with the weird relationship, was because she was using Charles as a tool, kind of. I never got the feeling that she was scared of her sister, but I could see it just because she was so passive and just the action always happened to her. Mm-hmm. Like, she never took any initiative to do anything that was good for her. It was just about everyone else. So I could see that maybe she could have been scared of Mary Cat, even subconsciously. Right. And it was like, well, I know you're capable of killing everybody. Maybe you'd kill me, so I better just be on your good side. That's why I let you fucking run in the woods and fucking whatever, and I'll just stay in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. But post-fire, when they're just living in this burnt-down house where the kitchen's fine, the cellar's fine, and they're just like sleeping. They bring like, it's like in the hallway. Yeah, they're sleeping in weird. They're like happy that the house is destroyed almost, like because they're finally on the moon, quote unquote. Like they finally feel they're finally isolated and nobody cares about them anymore. But that turns out to be not true, because the villagers, because they feel so bad about what they did, like they start bringing them food and leaving it on the doorstep one by one, and this goes on for a long time. And the ending is just kind of ends. Yeah, like you didn't get any resolution. Like they're just living in this fucked up house. Doesn't have a roof anymore. Well, it's a happy ending for Mary Cat because it's what she's wanted. Well, that's what I was saying. Ultimately, her will went out and she won. Mm-hmm. She got what she wanted, which was to be isolated with Constance. Yep, because she didn't even want Julian there. Yeah, because Julian was supposed to die too. Yeah, throughout the book, she always kept saying, which I thought was endearing at first, but then I realized maybe not so. She always said, "Oh, I need to be kinder to Uncle Julian." Yeah. I was like, "Oh, that's nice." But then when you find out, oh no, she tried to kill Uncle Julian with everyone else. She probably didn't give a shit about him. But now that his mind's so gone, maybe she doesn't care as much. Right.
yeah, once he was gone, it was just them two. You do get this feeling of like it's not a happy ending, in my opinion, because like I said,
no, that's what I'm just saying.
Yeah.
As from Mary Kat's from her perspective, it's a happy ending.
But she got what she wanted. But now, like I would say, Constance's life is ruined.
Oh, yeah.
She's never going to be normal.
No,
she had a chance with cousin Charles, who does come back one time with like a reporter or something. And there's a big veer, like it changes dramatically in the movie, but he comes back with like a reporter and he wants the safe and he's trying to sell like the story to the reporter, and ultimately they just fuck off guy. Like
because the guy wanted to take pictures of him. Yeah. That's the only way he would get any money.
Yeah, because you got to remember the sensationalism of the original family murder and how this came about was kind of big news. But you get the impression that because they stopped going to town altogether. So the town people are just like, okay, we feel bad now. We don't have any more resentment. We got it out of our system. And they also open up the path. I think they might have. Did they open up the path when Charles was there to start walking through the property, or was that after the? I think it was after the fire.
Yeah, it was after the fire because they had to like break it to get the truck in there and stuff.
Because weirdly, like kids were hanging out in their front yard, like playing and stuff.
Well, and it's like the dare, like, oh hey, go play in front of the haunted house.
Oh, go make fun of Mary Cat. So Mary Cat gets away, but like I said, I think she is the villain ultimately because in the beginning, she kills her whole family.
Oh yeah.
And then throughout the book, it's just because it's told from her viewpoint, so you feel like she's the protagonist. She's the victim, but no, she did all the bad stuff.
Yeah, she's the one like mentally abusing her sister, and
if it wasn't for her, obviously the family would just go on as normal. But let's say Charles came in and Mary Cat didn't do all this fucked up shit. So what would have happened? Like, yeah, he probably would have got the money, and Uncle Julian would have been put in a home, which is probably for his own good. And then Constance just would have had a life. The only one that would have been put out was Mary Cat. Mm-hmm. She would have been forced to be normal, which she was not and didn't want to be. That was basically the crux of it. Like, she just didn't want to be normal, and he was trying to put some normalcy in there, even if it was for greedy means, even if it was just so he could better his life. Like, he still did want to. You did get the impression that he actually did want Constance to have a better life because he probably liked her. So it was fucking weird. And by the way, inbreeding is not uncommon in the hierarchy of the rich fucks. And anyway, the movie version actually it's a faithful adaptation except the end. Mm-hmm. The ending, which I didn't care for, but I get why they did it. And the movie is fantastic. It's just the ending I was a little on. The Charles, instead of like being outside trying to like get in at the end, and it's like, hey, I want you guys, blah blah blah, or give me the money or whatever the fuck he's doing. He actually breaks in, roughs up Constance. Mary Cat murders him with like a snow globe or something, bashes him in the head. And then that's when they have the discussion about, I know you killed the whole family. Like Constance, like, she does the mittens. I know you poisoned the family, but it was to take care of their father mainly because he was abusive. So they threw that element in of the men were abusive. Cousin Charles, he ultimately tries to rough him up, and that's why he has to die. And then their father, John, tried to, he was doing shit to Constance, and it was just in defense of the sister. That made it so Mary Cat wasn't the villain in the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, like I said, at least in my opinion, it's a strong case that she's the villain.
Yeah.
But in the movie, that makes it more understandable. So I like both. I like when movies take an original take on they have an original take on the source material. Because if it's just straight faithful adaptation, what's the point? You just read the book.
True.
So we have always lived in the castle. I gave it 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd give it a 5 too.
I really liked it. I like the ambiance. I like how the first part is just straight gothic and creepy and Dracula-esque. It's like the opening of Dracula when he goes to that fucking creepy village in Romania or wherever, Transylvania. Yeah. And you're like, ugh, these people are all weird, but they're not actually the bad ones. The psychological bits were amazing. The fact that the character development, the fact that she chose to tell the story from the viewpoint of a fucking
psycho,
sociopath, maybe. That's the thing. You can't say she was unfeeling because she did feel for her sister. So it wasn't that she was. That's why I go with the autistic approach, because if she was just unfeeling like a sociopath, she wouldn't care about her sister so much.
Yeah.
Though it did come from a place of control, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it more control or is it more just what she wants?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't actually hear in some of the things I read up on or watched, I didn't get anyone saying that Mary Cat was the villain necessarily. But I think that goes to your initial statement of, oh, she seems like she was a kid.
Yeah.
But she's not. She's 18. She's an adult.
that probably acts more kid-like.
Yeah, so
childish-like.
Yeah, and I mean, she was early teen when she murdered the whole family.
Yeah.
But still, I can't make a case for her being the good one because that scene in the cottage or whatever
I
it was.
think this is one of those weird, like, those stories that, like, there really is no good one.
No one's really good. Maybe Constance.
Maybe.
She's the ultimate victim because she's just at the whims of whoever's in control at the moment. But I think the whole story actually unravels in that scene where Mary Kat's in the cottage having the fantasy about her parents saying she could never be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just shows that she does not take accountability for anything and she never thinks she's the wrong one. Like, she's never in the wrong.
Yeah.
Regardless of Cousin Charles being a piece of shit or not, you can't just fucking burn the house down because you don't like the guy.
Right.
Like, that's fucked up. You can't, I mean, because, okay, if she doesn't burn the house down, Uncle Julian doesn't die. She murdered Uncle Julian.
Yeah.
Which she tried to do originally.
Right.
So even though she wanted to be kinder to him, she fucking killed the guy.
Well, maybe that's her version of kindness.
Maybe. She could have easily killed Constance as well in that moment. Like, you don't know how that fire was going to go out. She didn't think. She just did it. That's her whole thing is, like, she has these weird superstitions and stuff, but she doesn't actually think through the consequences of anything.
Well, because she, like you were saying, no accountability or anything, so
yeah,
why would she?
Yeah. Any favorite scenes or parts of the book?
Like, I mean, like, the whole fire and them coming in, like, that was crazy.
What about the cafe scene? Did that leave you on edge when you were reading that because you didn't know it was going to happen?
Yeah, it just on edge. It just, like, you know, just put it out like a little bit. Like I said, like, that was like one of the scenes where it's just like that makes you kind of endear to Mary Cat a little bit, because then also too, like, because in the beginning, even though, you know, she's having all these terrible thoughts and like the teasing of her being the one that actually murdered, you still kind of find yourself like liking her though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, I think that goes to, like, you know, Shirley Jackson's writing, you know?
Yeah.
That even though there's this terrible character doing terrible things, you're still like, I kind of agree with her.
Yeah. Well, that's where the brilliance of the book shines through, is the fact that you can really get a view of why every character's right in their version of events. So you can understand why Charles does what he does. You can understand Constance's mindset and what she's been through. You can understand why Mary Cat does the weird things she does, which could only be told from her viewpoint. If this was third person, you would just be like, oh, that girl's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
But that's also where the movie did fail, in my opinion. In the movie, and it's probably was deliberate if you go by the ending, Mary Cat, a couple times she mentions like poisoning, because she does the thing with the naming poisons and stuff. And a couple times, maybe she says something about, oh, that person should be dead or something. But none of the inner monologue about, oh, they should be dead in the street and all that horrible shit. So you don't at all get her point of view in the movie where she's wanting everybody to die. So you don't get the psychopath view that you get, the Wednesday Addams viewpoint that you get in the book. So in the book, it comes across where you think she's the victim, but then she's thinking these awful thoughts, and you think it's because everyone's treating her so poorly. But you don't really stop to contemplate the fact that maybe people are thinking think poorly of her because she's fucking crazy. Or maybe they're not thinking poorly of her at all. She just thinks it in her head because of the paranoia. So, very interesting character study.
Well, we also kind of glossed over during the time when they were in trial. They just like had her in a home, in a foster home. And I think that also then didn't help like the craziness of like, you know, her...
Especially back then. Yeah. Like, well, it was a foster home back then. Like, it wasn't even an orphanage. It was an orphanage, not a foster home.
Yeah.
Fucking dirty orphanage.
Right.
So that was our review, I guess, of We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I am going to read her other works. The next one is Hangs a Man.
Well, I was going to say, if you've read this book, or, you know, the good thing about her is, like she doesn't have a huge library. What we said, like 6 novels and like 20-something short stories. So
yeah, not a crazy bibliography. So you can go through her work fairly quickly, I would think.
Let it out.
Anyway, if you want to check us out on the internet at DPW Podcast on Twitter. I'm saying Twitter. You know what? I decided to fuck X, fuck Elon Musk. He's a piece of shit.
He is a piece of shit.
I just keep seeing things that make him worse in my esteem. So Twitter. It's just Twitter.
It's Twitter.
At DPW Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You could check me out at calebjamesk.com. As of the publishing of this, it's the end of October. So as of the publishing of this episode, if it's not out already, it will be out. I think, did I say the 30th or the 20th? I think the 20th? Whenever, just keep an eye out for Beautiful Darkness Volume 3. I have a very long story in it, and you will want to check that out. And on our fancy Halloween episode next week, I will do a reading of the introduction.
Ooh.
The opening scene to give you a little bit of a feel. And that is put out by Dragon Soul Press. Also, which should be out now or in the coming days, the Halloween edition of Siren's Call, which features stories from me and Spencer. My story, I think, is just called Cursed Flesh. Or I think so, because I had to change it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have to change it. I shortened it or something. But I think it's Cursed Flesh. And your story is Crow Eyes?
Crow Eyes.
Crow
Yes.
Eyes. So both of our stories are very short. So check that out. That should be out the last week of October. So I think it'll be out now.
Yeah, hopefully.
And like I said, stick around for our spooky Halloween spooktacular, whatever we are doing. We haven't decided, but yeah, we'll do a reading. Spencer said he's going to read 5 stories in a row. Of Jules Verne, James Joyce.
Well, see, I was thinking like
Poe,
What,
Lovecraft,
David
Foster Wallace,
yeah,
Alan Moore's Jerusalem,
some Cormac McCarthy,
Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. He's going to read it cover to cover on air. I would think that. I don't know who that would torture more, you or the listeners. Anyway, we'll check you out next time.